Welcome to the garden. Today I've brought out my soil from storage, and it's important to rehydrate this if it's been dry. It's really good to store your soil dry, that way it doesn't get moldy and musty. But before we use it for our seedlings, we want to really moisten it again. This brings it back to life, and you can see it absorbs pretty well on the surface here because it's all pre-moistened. But if we just look just below the surface, it's bone dry. It's absolutely bone dry. So this peat moss potting soil I'm using is really hydrophobic. So you really want to soak it. It's like a dry sponge, just repelling water. So we need to pre-moisten so that when you go to water the first time, the seeds get nice and surrounded with that moisture. So if you can squeeze water out of it, it's a little too wet. But that consistency right after it's been wrung is perfect. So we want to shoot for that consistency right there. So I'm just going to bring some dry stuff up from the bottom. There's a little bit of perlite in here and a little bit of sand. That's just my personal mix that I like. I've heard some people say that sand doesn't actually improve drainage, that it can lead to compaction, but I think it actually lightens it up pretty nicely. As long as you're not overwatering, because the sand can settle to the bottom. But even then, sand at the bottom provides decent drainage. So this is right about perfect, right here. It'll kind of hold its shape, but if I squeeze it, I'm not getting a lot of moisture. I like to use seed cells for smaller plants. And these fit into an old recycled spinach container, too deep, so these are perfect. I really like how these work. These little spinach containers are really nice. You can also fill them up with cups. I'm using styrofoam, but you could use other plastics. And these work really great for larger things like peppers and tomatoes. It's just one less time you have to transplant them from a seed cell, so you just get a little bit healthier plants. I like to sprinkle the soil on, that way I can see if there's any large bits of wood chips in here. I'm not using a really nice seed starting mix. This is just my normal potting soil. So there's going to be bits of larger pieces, little pieces of wood chips and things. So it's a good idea to lightly pack in your soil. You don't want too much air down there. That way you get a nice even watering, and when you go to transplant these, the soil's not falling apart. It'll stay nice and contained. So big wood chips make their way in. So then you want to retop it. And then, depending on what you're planting, you can do your 2 holes or just the 1. Sometimes you do want to try a couple different seeds, especially if you've got older seed stock. But here I'll just plant a couple peppers. I'll do 2 in these. And then we'll just recover them. Just like that. And these are ready to water. And because we've got nice moist soil, they'll get nice and evenly watered. So I've brought our little seeds out into the greenhouse, and we want to water gently. You can use a spray bottle. It doesn't disturb the surface, because if you use just a normal watering can, it can actually bring the seeds up. But to prevent that, we can water from the bottom. So just pour maybe a centimeter of water down into the bottom of the container. That way it'll percolate up through the soil. And because our soil's nice and packed in there and it's been pre-moistened, it'll absorb really easily. So that's how I plant out my seedlings. Pretty soon they'll grow up into our little sprouts. So I hope you give this a go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.